of being the victim, like, yo, we gonna get it just like everybody else.
And also,
Yeah.
not to interrupt, but interject that we wanted to shine light on something that was positive. Simple as that. Like a balance in what entertainment can be. Like he said, you kind of get tired of looking at projects that give you a certain feeling. It's a downer. It's like a downer to keep looking at slavery. What else did we have? We had other things. We had so we gave people options. And LaRon did a great job as a producer. Lorenz as well, myself, and we're grateful for this project to answer that question about that passion.
One last bit of news, that the last time we were here, we talked about it. It was like, oh, we just finished this audio series for people who were here and heard us speak last time. So to see a year later, till today, to see that accomplishment, that's how much, they only shot it, we only recorded for 10 days, but the amount of work that went through in terms of promotion, Lorenz did an amazing job promoting this basically almost by himself. And I have to take my hat off to you because we put a lot on your shoulder. Lamar, again, they're the whole step of the way. Again, it doesn't happen overnight for whatever it is that everybody out here is trying to get off the ground, but it does take a period of time. And if you stick with it and you actually pursue it the same way and have the same type of passion for it from the day one, this is the results that you can possibly get.
Absolutely, and I love how you are referring to Black excellence, because this is what we have up here, and then you're sharing it, and just that energy really does go out. And that's a part of actually one of my questions. You've actually answered almost all of them just from talking, so that you're making this really easy for me. But I was thinking, what do you feel is your responsibility as far as what you put out there? Because there's this whole political climate, all of the things that are happening now, and do you feel like it's an artist's responsibility to put a different face out there, or?
I do believe there's a level of responsibility that we have as artists. For me, as an actor, I feel like there's a level of responsibility to protect the integrity of my choices and projects. You're not gonna always have the best of the best choices, but if you could try to protect the integrity of what you wanna do as much as you possibly can. And I do believe going into the other side of things as filmmakers, as storytellers, yeah, you do have that responsibility, especially if you're going to do it from an independent standpoint. You definitely want to be able to say something and have or create a platform for those who may not have a voice. Something that speaks to you, that you feel like could either make a difference or just something that's a little different. From a diverse standpoint, there are a lot more of stories that need to be told. Hollywood is a big influencer, and if you were living outside of America, you'd assume that Hollywood was all white men with the same story, but that's not a true representation of what America is, because America is very diverse. But there's not enough of the people in the boardrooms who make the decision on these high levels to keep that diverse narrative alive. And so it's happening. There's a lot more diverse projects that are being seen and heard about. You could take a sister like Issa Rae, for instance,
Yes.
who is doing her thing. Her web series on YouTube, she's been doing it for so long. And to see someone like her get an opportunity to see how she represents, Black women and what that narrative is specifically, and how it also can relate to the mainstream and the world, to see that narrative, to see a sister like Ava DuVernay to tell the stories, to have a movie like Girls Trip, right? To be produced by a Black completely produced, written, directed, the concept, everything, and unapologetically was for and about black women.
Yes.
That's what it was, unapologetically. Essence, friendship, and not to be afraid to embrace that. And those are the kinds of things that we have to continue to push. But as LaRon said, it's like where you start, no matter where you ultimately go and you finish, you want to be able to continue to keep those core values, those core elements with you, because that's the truth. Where we are right now is the truth.
Yes.
And sometimes in Hollywood, all of that can kind of get boiled out of us because, you know, we're having to answer to different kinds of people who are the decision makers once you are in business because they hold the purse strings. And sometimes your story or your vision is being altered because ultimately you're using someone else's money. And no one, the mentality in Hollywood is like, no one's forcing anybody to be a storyteller. No one's making you standing in a long line of people. You don't have to. So you have to prove that you are in that long line for a reason, right? And that what you are doing, what we are doing is meaningful. And that it does garner the finances that it needs to be made. It does garner the attention and the press and the media and the platform for it to be released. But again, you don't have to, you have to know when and where and how to sort of alter that without, you know, forfeiting your integrity.
Yes, you are speaking to my soul right now. Wait. You are, absolutely, thank you. I actually needed to hear that right now, thank you. And I bet there are a lot of people out there that needed to hear the same thing. I feel like, just so beautifully segueing into all of my questions. I don't know if there's like some psychic thing going on here.
Kinetic energy, yep.
I just wanted to see if you guys have any advice for people who are trying to make it into the independent film world. And I feel like, LaRon, that you had said something about how when you go the independent route that you can be more free with the stories.
Well, one of the things that I realize is that it's important that, you know, beyond having the sheer will to do this, because this isn't easy for anybody. It's not a lot of glory initially. You have to have some type of love for what you do, but it's events like this that keeps the spirit alive. And I think that's what's important, that the film festivals that are around the country, but it's the grassroots movement, what Ken is doing here in offering people an opportunity to have a voice. I think before what is it, the Jeff Friday's thing, that ABFF, Lorenz was down there when it first started, and out of that came several projects that, you know, it's just, you guys have to communicate amongst yourselves. It is literally, you have to connect with the person next to you and connect the dots in order for it to happen. Everybody doesn't have this. There are times when we have to pick each other up to stay focused or keep driving on what it is, the goal at hand. When you're doing independent filmmaking, it is just that, it's independent. So you have to go with what you know and who you go to. We treated Bronzeville no different than an independent film. And I had to say that because it's difficult going to a star and telling them there is no money. You know, I need your time, but I'm not about to pay you what you want to get paid or what your agents, and that's usually what it was. Their agents was like, well, you know.
But also what they're worth. There's a lot of people
That's
who
true.
say
Yes.
what they're worth.
Exactly.
But and I don't mean to cut you off, but
No.
there's something to be said about people responding to the story. Something that really struck a chord to a lot of these actors and actresses and people involved. It's like, wow, I didn't know that the community one of the first black department stores was in Chicago. I didn't know that black folks had their own police department, so they can police themselves. A lot different, right, than what it would be if we had our own police departments in our own communities, because we don't really police ourselves, obviously. So it is something to be said, like what else can we learn? And the genesis of it all came from when I was doing the movie Ray, playing Quincy Jones. Quincy's originally from Chicago, and we were talking, and he was saying, about Southside Chicago. We were talking about, running numbers and the policy, and how the Southside Chicago sort of was. And I was like, wow. So we began to do research about that. The economic engine was actually the policy. And policy is just, you get a number. I'm gonna play 5 cents on this number. They go take this number, they put it in a wheel, they spin it around to get the number out. Okay, you win 10 cents. Or you can put $5, you win 10 bucks. Well, that was our economic infrastructure. That is how these people who ran these policies, they became the pillars of the community. So other communities, because America is what it is, America is not a pretty place. It wasn't built on all the things that it said it was built on. So you had communities that were thriving off of liquor and alcohol and all kinds of other things. Well, they called that racketeering, the government. Well, eventually, other communities began to adapt this policy, because black folks who were running this, they were making, at that time, hundreds of millions of dollars. The people, they would be what Oprah and Bob Johnson and are today, our black billionaires.
You gotta,
Right.
now I'm gonna take a moment, just hear this once again. We're talking about the 1940s.
$100 million people.
$100 million.
Black.
And they did it off of these running them. So other communities began to sort of adapt these policies or this sort of way of making money. What these pillars of the community did, they
Reinvested.
they put the money back in the community. They built the.
They didn't run away.
Up. So it all became legit, right?
Yes.
Eventually, the government took it over, and it is what today is the Illinois State Lottery.
Oh, wow.
The lottery is built by black folks.
They made it the lottery, but what we did was we were running those numbers, and it is what is today the lottery.
Yeah.
But we don't run it.
So to get back on the community side of things, of when you're being an independent filmmaker, it is just that. It's a community. So you have to look to your community. When we were doing our project, I looked to our community to say, hey, I know this isn't what you're worth, but this is what I kind of need, and if it speaks to you, come play. Everybody said yes.
Yeah, they love that whole
Yeah.
story. Yeah, that unity is so important.
It is, and the connection, the community. I mean, that's the only way. I was thinking of connection when you said connection, because we are on our phones, and there's this whole different type of connection going on, and it's not going to happen unless you connect with people in person. Me and my sisters, we have circles. I talk to my sisters every Sunday. We have a call where, it's just so important to connect and lift each other up.
Another reason why this particular project spoke to us, and I know we are talking about it, but there's so many little things that have come from that. There was a certain sort of core value system that we live by. And it goes back to that community, that family, looking out for one another, because we all benefited from it, Now, when we talk about unity, the lack of unity for us, believe it or not, benefits other people. We are bred to depend on other folk. Right? We are bred to lean on other folks. That's why it's really hard to see a lot of black-owned businesses in your own communities. But there's other folk outside of the communities that own the department stores or the grocery stores and all
Liquor
those
store.
things. We the only folk that can't tell somebody to come, oh, you can't live over here. We go to another community, oh, y'all can't open up no business over here. We don't make no laws. I'm on my soapbox right now,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
love
just
it.
saying,
I love
I'm just
it.
saying, there's a lot of things that we have gotten away from. You know what I mean? Even when we talk about our churches, they were more than just a religious or spiritual place for us to be. We would go there and people can go and have food.
It was
eat,
our town hall.
and do, and we've heard what's going on in these other communities when catastrophic things happen and people won't even open up,
Yes.
the doors.
We know what
It's
you're
like,
talking about.
Come on, it's like, so we had our own infrastructure, our own thinking, and what worked for us. And so this project speaks volume, but we understood it was going to take a long time because every time we went to talk about this,